Hey everybody, it's Matt from the house, and today we're going to talk to you about snowboard bases. Who and why and where and what and all that confusing stuff when you see all the numbers and the names. Just to try to break it down and keep it nice and simple for you. Let's check some out. All right, so right off the bat, how a snowboard works, basically how it gets down the hill. That's one of the most important things, because obviously that's what snowboarding is all about, getting from top to bottom. Basic physics on how snowboard works is that your board travels on the snow, and from you standing on it and the pressure, it melts the snow just a tiny little bit, and then you've got this very, very thin layer of water. Basically, your board is repelling that water, and you're sliding right on top of it. That's kind of like a basic gist of how the snowboard gets down the hill. Basically, the snow is constantly melting, and then it's refreezing after you ride over it. This is why when you get to the resort, you get that one spot everybody's been turning in. It's super icy because that snow is constantly melting, refreezing, melting, refreezing, and best to avoid those spots. So first up, we're gonna check out the Chamonix Caden here. This one's got an extruded base, and there's always a big thing. Your main bases are gonna be your extruded and your sintered bases, and a lot of people, say like, oh, sintered's better than extruded, and blah, 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 and when it comes down to it, it's really just about the material itself. Extruded does tend to be a little less expensive. It's basically, you've got polyethylene, pellets, and they're melted together. They're a little lower molecular weight, and they basically melt them all together, so it's kind of like it's a solid base. It's a little easier to make. Helps keep the price down on the boards. A lot of people think that a sintered base is better, but there's actually some instances where extruded base is better. Extruded bases, you don't have to wax them as much. Since they are solid, when they don't have wax, in their raw form, they actually are faster than a sintered base. But when waxed, the sintered base is definitely way better. So you'll find a lot of your park boards, your lower end beginner boards, people that aren't really waxing their boards a lot, that's usually where you're gonna see a lot of the extruded bases. So it is a good material, it's just, again, that lower molecular weight and the fact that it is all kind of melted together and it's kind of one piece. It makes it a little easier to repair, but it does ding a little easier as well. So you've got your pros and cons. But like I said, definitely something you'll see on a lot of those, less expensive boards. Okay, next up, we're gonna talk about sintered base. So again, extruded and sintered are gonna be your main bases. Sintered base on this Battalion Party Wave. Basically with the sintered base, it's still made out of that same polyethylene, but it's got a higher molecular weight to a point where it really doesn't melt. So basically what they have to do is they have to take those little pellets and those little pieces and they push them together. They do heat it up still, but they're actually using force to really kind of compact them and press them together, and they use the force to get them together. So they basically heat it up, press it all together, and then let it cool for a long time, and then you get this solid piece where they can kind of almost like a piece of wood on a lathe, and they just kind of cut out a big piece of pieces of the base. So the really cool thing about how they do this is that when you've got those pellets, it's kind of like a bunch of pieces all put together like this. So you've got all these pores in the base, and this is why a sintered base, when it's waxed, is better than an extruded base, and why it's way faster is because since it's not a solid piece, it can actually accept the wax. So the wax can kind of get down into all those nooks and crannies in between all the little pieces. And it holds the wax better too. Also, it tends to be a little more durable if you do hit something and you ding it. If you think about it, you got all these little pieces put together, just a few pieces are gonna pop out instead of tearing up a big part of it. That's why when you get to those sintered bases, they do tend to be, they cost a little bit more. And they usually are on your, kind of mid to high end boards. I think probably the majority of the boards in the market are gonna have that sintered base, but yeah, Definitely a great way to go. If you religiously wax your boards, sintered base is always the best way to go. If you never wax your board, it's not like it doesn't work, but definitely gonna be that more durable, higher end base in the long run. Okay, next up we're gonna kind of talk about some of the different numbers on the bases and some kind of special things that the companies can do with bases. A lot of times you'll see like Sintered 2000, Sintered 4000, Extruded 3000. A lot of times when they throw those numbers in there, it's just kind of a rating of how, how nice that material is. So obviously you've got polyethylene. It's not just polyethylene. There can be different versions of it, different molecular weights. And there is a way to actually, you buy that higher number, you're gonna get a better base that's gonna, hold wax better. It's gonna be more durable. It's gonna accept the wax more. Great way to actually describe that is right here in the Burton Hometown Hero. So Burton has what they call the WFO base, which we can't say on this family YouTube channel is exactly what that means, but you can maybe figure it out. So basically what this is, you get a higher grade sintered base on this one, but it's also wax infused. And what that means is, all boards come waxed right from the factory, and usually it's got a nice thin layer of wax that'll get you out riding a few times. But this board is not just regular waxed material, it's actually has the wax kind of baked into the base. It's almost like this board has been waxed 30 times before you went and wrote it. So it's really had a lot of time to really bake that wax and really get it down into the pores of the board. And the more it stays in the board, the less waxing that you have to do, but also the faster the board is gonna be as well. All right, next up, we're gonna talk about, obviously it's not just extruded, sintered, and then that's it. Companies are always trying to progress, always trying to make things better, make things faster, more durable. It's always a constant progression. And LibTech has actually got a base that's pretty cool. They call it their TNT base, and you'll see this on a good amount of the models in their lineup. And the TNT is pretty cool. TNT actually stands for titanium nanotechnologies. So when they're making these materials, making these polyethylene bases, you can mix some stuff in to actually make them better, make them faster, stronger, and this is basically where they take some titanium, little microscopic, what I call it, nano pieces that are kind of mixed in. They've also got some other special stuff that only I'm sure a handful of people know. So they're gonna take those materials and they're gonna infuse them into the base. So it's not just straight up polyethylene. And the really cool thing is by having that secret formula inside there is it actually takes the benefits of the extruded base when it's not waxed, but it also has faster properties of the sintered base. So it's kind of like an all-in-one, material between the two. So yeah, pretty cool stuff that they're doing, and LibTech is always on the forefront of just mind-blowing technology where you're kind of like, they can do that. Okay, last but not least, you're gonna see a lot more additives out there, and obviously as the technologies grow and they get newer, you're gonna see more and more. But another big one that you see in a lot of really high-end boards, usually your boards that are gonna be kind of in the $700-800 on up dollar range, not all the time, but for the most part, you're gonna actually see like this Alchemist from K2 carbon. So this base is essentially, it's like the other bases where they're taking a sintered base, but they're actually infusing little tiny bits of carbon in there. So carbon's not just there for strength, it's not just there for extra snappy poppiness on a board, it's actually in there to help repel the water and make it more hydrophobic and reduce the static and the friction, and make a board wicked fast. Okay, thanks for checking out the base technologies with us. Obviously when you're looking through the companies and their different kinds of bases, there's gonna be a lot of different names. Everybody has their own name for their special kind of, base materials, and a lot of times they will use the extruded, sintered, all those names, but you might see some fun names just keep things a little lively and keep you guessing. But in the end of the day, Usually the board has the base that matches up best with the board. But if you got any questions beyond that, definitely leave us some comments down below. We're trying to get to those and answer them as quick as possible. Also like and subscribe, and definitely get that bell on for notifications if you want to see when our next video comes out. But check out all the boards, boots, bindings, and all the fun stuff at thehouse.com. And if you guys got snow in your area right now, make sure to get out and do some riding. Any day riding is a good day.